He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Right, Alex Marlow Show. Welcome to the show today. I hope all of you had a great weekend. I had a really good weekend. It was a little different. I had a little reprieve from some of the children. We did, the three older ones had a sleepover at Nani and Nano's house. So I got to have a lot of baby time, and she's just exquisite right now. She's at one of my favorite ages. She's almost 16 months, Duchess Marlow Jr. And Master Marlow got the game ball at the T-ball game because he actually did not use the tee. So he got 3 at-bats and hit the pitch all 3 times. So that was great. So a good weekend. Hope you guys all enjoyed your weekends as well. And as I promised, I say this every time, but as I promised, I did get out the hottest grill on the market, besthotgrill.com. That's the Solera infrared grill. And I seared off some ribeyes. I got to admit, I had a long day on Friday. And the day ended I had to give a speech across town. I had to sit in traffic. And when I sat in traffic, I said, you know what? I'm going to treat myself. And I did. This is a brag. I got the American Wagyu. I got the American Wagyu ribeyes. It was a big splurge, but you know what? It was a long week. It was Friday. I knew I was off that night, and I'd worked every night the whole week. So it's the Monday through Thursday. I'd worked every night. Friday I was off. Got the American Wagyu ribeyes. Seared those things off at the best hot grill in the market, the Solera infrared grill, besthotgrill.com. And I did get that perfect crust that I always talk about, and that wall-to-wall red to pinkish, medium rare center, and no gray band. It was fantastic. With only the type of stuff that you can do with Solera infrared grill, besthotgrill.com, made in America, high quality stainless steel, 1,000 degrees. You guys have heard my pitch, and I don't know what more I can say. It was the start of my weekend, was whipping out that Solera grill and getting it going. All right, getting into business here. On Friday, the speech I gave, actually, I will mention that. I was at a CPAC Beverly Hills, which was fun, and I spoke a lot about the media and the future of media. And I think what I'm going to do, I like some of the stuff I had to say, and the speech was unavailable. I've got another speech tomorrow. And I have asked the group that I'm speaking for to capture it. So I think I might try to put that out. So you got that to look forward to, where I kind of give a state of play with the media. Those of you who've been with me for a while know that one of my areas of expertise is just media in general. I wrote a book about it, New York Times bestseller, called Breaking the News, which many of you have picked up, which I appreciate. And I think there's a lot that can be said about where we're at in the media landscape now that is worth a refresh in some of these topics. So we'll get to some of those during the week, but some things just never change. CNN, for example, is now platforming Sinaloa gangsters. And they are, I've got a clip of this. You may as well just hear this thing. Check this out.
According to the Trump administration, you are a terrorist. I mean, the cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Está fea la situación, ¿verdad? Está fea la situación, pero pues de todos modos tenemos que comer.
What's your message to Donald Trump if he's watching this?
Well, I want to read this for the audience. But you can see that they've got a Sinaloa gang member branded as a terrorist. He's wearing a mask. He's got a hat. He's got glasses on, so you can't see who he is. And CNN is talking to him as if he's some sort of a victim of Trump's fascism. And he says, well, the situation is ugly, but we have to eat.
What's your message to Donald Trump?
What's your message to Trump?
My
My respect. Clever. According to him, he's looking out for his people. The problem is the consumers are in the United States. If there weren't any consumers, we would stop. And she basically is encouraging him to speak up on his own behalf to Trump that a gang that's known for murders, rapes, pumping drugs into our country, killing little children, and which is why they got blacklisted, and CNN just treats it as though this is what's your message for Trump? It's like, what? I'm not sure if that's the question. It's like, well, how about why do you do this? It's a why not just say, hey, why do you feel like killing Americans is cool? So anyway, that's where the media is at, and that's why you get stuff like Trump cutting executive orders to cut NPR and PBS public funding, Good stuff. We'd love to see it. So that came out over the last weekend. I just don't know why this took so long to do this. PBS and NPR will exist. They generate enough revenue other places. Why do they need public funding? It's just such a national disgrace. We've always prided ourselves as having a press that is allegedly free and not aligned with the state, and our press has carried water for the Democrat Party whenever they're in power for so long. Why would Republicans fund the press when they're so hostile? I bet you if you poll the people at NPR and PBS, how many think are registered Republicans? Do you think it's more than 3% over there? So why would you have such an unbalanced press that is funded by the U.S. government? It doesn't make any sense. So we don't have that relationship with any other establishment media outlet. So why would we do it with those two? I've never got why this has been so difficult. It's gonna we're gonna move on from it. We have to, and it's time. Also, in media news, so there's a woman named Hannah Trudeau. And she was a former senior political correspondent at The Hill. Senior political correspondent. So it's a big title. And she is now going to run for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st district. And I want you to guess what political party she's in. Any guesses? Would you have guessed Democrat? I think you would have. So she describes herself as a journalist who's tired of writing the same story about how Democrats keep losing to Republicans and failing us. So just to let you know, if this was a Republican, this would have been a front and center story everywhere. I bring it to your attention mostly to make that point, mostly to make the point that none of you are actually surprised that this is who's running our media. It is Democrat operatives, Democrat activists. Even goes beyond that. It's corporatist. It's the status quo protectors. It is those who are the palace guards for the permanent political class in Washington. Those are the people who run our media. They get access by doing that, by carrying water for corporations, by carrying water for the Democrat Party, and for carrying water for the deep state and the U.S. government. That's how they got the power that they have. It's a tale as old as time, especially in conservative media. And it just lets you know it's ongoing. It's ongoing. We need to mock them. We need to fund them. We need to beat them, all of that. But the problem is not entirely resolved. And the left still maintains a certain level, the media still maintains a certain level of power, but we can expose them by noting that they're inconsistent and that their Trump derangement is compelling them to stake out ideas that are not great. Really interesting Financial Times report that I saw over the weekend showing that America's attitudes towards free trade. So as of 2 years ago, free trade in a pure sense, people who were strongly approving of free trade was actually pretty low in this country. It was only 20%. And that was pretty much universal. Liberals, conservatives, moderates were all in about the 20% range. For support of free trade. I think people that have understood, and I was heartened by that number to begin with, because I had read a lot of supply side free trade literature growing up. I thought I was a free trader until I got into the real world. I got to Washington and I was exposed to what free trade had wrought, which is really globalism. And it was the gutting of America's interior and replacing the good, hardworking American jobs with fentanyl, with poverty, with abandoned warehouses, and outsourcing a lot of our manufacturing to the third world and relying on slave labor to get slightly cheaper goods. And that was the result of free trade. I didn't like it. And so I think a lot of people had internalized that. But what's noteworthy is that all of a sudden, and this was in as of Election Day, all these numbers are about the same. Election Day 2024, all these numbers, Republicans slightly going down, Democrats slightly going up, but all roughly in the 20% range. Liberals now all of a sudden love free trade. So now over 40% of liberals strongly approve of free trade in the country, and only about 13% of conservatives do. So Trump slaps on these tariffs, and all of a sudden the left decides that after all of these years of being collectivists, being statists, being people who are often communists, socialists, now all of a sudden they're free traders, that they just want a free global market. And they love it. They love the idea of Chinese slave labor, and they love the idea of being able to outsource a lot of working class American jobs to the third world. That is what the left backs now. And of course, they don't really believe these things. What they do believe, though, is that anything Trump does must be wrong. And that's how Trump is really beating them in a lot of ways. Well, I've noted in the last couple of weeks how He has tricked them into backing Abrego Garcia, the Italian, Abrego Garcia, who is now, we got the footage of him, which came out last week. I don't need to play it. You've probably seen it by now, of him getting arrested, clearly involved in human smuggling, international crime, and trying to smuggle human beings across the United States. He's here illegally and he's committing crimes while he's here, and they're championing him. Harvard, which does not need all the federal funds that it gets, championing that they get every last penny. They can't just get $5 or $6 billion a year. They got to get 8 or 9. Trump does this to people, and it's an incredible power. It's one of his superpowers that he tricks the left into staking out some of the worst ideas imaginable. He just traps them over and over and over again, and that is it's a meaningful thing. I was really struck by, this is a couple of days old, but I want to share it. This photo of Trump with Saquon Barkley, who's one of the best running backs in the NFL, and he won the Super Bowl. He seems like a deeply apolitical guy. He said he played golf with Obama, but then he's on the golf course with Trump, and they're having a good time, and he goes to the White House, he has a good time. And so you win the Super Bowl, you get to hang out with the U.S. president. You would have thought this should be automatic, that of course, if you win the Super Bowl, you're a young guy, you're not a super political guy, it'd be cool to hang out with the president, particularly if it's a guy like Donald Trump, who's been the subject of, 80-something rap songs, I think was the last count that people had. It's probably more, but that was the last time I heard someone tally it up. So you would think that'd be cool. No, but all the comments online are just all of these just huge levels of hatred. And why is that? It's because the left doesn't actually believe that you should have freedom to choose, freedom to think for yourself. They want you to go into these boxes where you are a part of an establishment, where you are locked into a worldview. And that's not really what America is all about in principle. We are about freedom of thought. We are about innovation. We are about being at the cutting edge. And stifling of freedom, that's just never been a part of our character. We're people who love liberty. It's one of the core American values. And the left doesn't like that. They don't want you to be able to think for yourself. And I think that this is probably toxic for them long term. We know the economy right now is absolutely chaotic. We don't know if it's doing great or if it's doing bad, but I'll tell you one thing that is the biggest no-brainer going on right now. It's gold. Gold and precious metals. Gold is up 25% year to date, over $3,300 an ounce. Goldman Sachs thinks it could go to $3,700 an ounce this year, and I would not be surprised if it does. It is just a remarkable rise in gold. If you look at it year over year, it was about $2,400 at this time last year. If you look at a 5-year margin, it's almost doubled. If you bought gold years ago, you would have made a fortune. And I've got great partners in the gold industry, Priority Gold. You go to prioritygold.com/freedom, or you text SNC as in Salem News Channel, SNC, and you connect with them and they will get you the number is 24999. Text SNC to 24999, or you go to prioritygold.com/freedom. They got a free wealth preservation guide. They got a free gold and silver guide. They'll get in touch with you, answer your questions, and get you into the gold game. And it's the place to be. It is the safest bet. It's a hedge against everything. And with Trump's policies, you might also see silver rising. So there's other precious metals, IRAs, 401ks. You can get involved tax and penalty free. Great way to protect your wealth. And at this rate, you're probably going to grow it quite a bit as well. So again, SNC to 24999, or go to prioritygold.com/freedom. And I'm excited about this in a way because I think it shows their weakness and their vulnerability, that they feel like that they cannot concede anything to Trump. They can't even let him play golf with a Super Bowl champion without causing a stink about it. And I think it's such a bad look. And I feel like people are going to get the picture. All right, let me continue. What's going on? Do I got more media stuff, or is that the only? Yeah, see, this is another one. Perfect example. So you probably caught Trump posing as the Pope. He did some sort of a meme. He put a meme out where he's got one of the Pope's mitres on, which is their cool Pope hat, and he's dressed in the white, which is I think you got to be the Pope to get to wear the white. And I'll bone up on all this stuff before the conclave gets going here in a few days. And a lot of people were just acting outraged online of Trump doing an AI meme of him being the Pope. Well, does that really offend you, or are you choosing to be offended? Because it used to be that we could make jokes. And the exact type of people who are being offended are the ones who are okay with Catholics supporting abortions up until the 4th trimester. And I'm only being somewhat tongue-in-cheek there because Catholics like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi that they would be comfortable with post-birth abortions, it appears, because they never spoke out against any of the people like the Ralph Northams of the world, the former governor of Virginia, who was for fourth trimester abortion, so meaning baby murder, essentially, is what it is. And you guys have heard this one before, but it's noteworthy that people are very deeply offended by that, but they're not offended by, as J.D. Vance is pointing out online, starting endless wars where Americans die, the limitless abortions. It's all these things that don't offend Democrat Catholics, but it does offend an AI of Trump as the Pope. As a Catholic, I can say I thought it was hilarious and not the least bit funny. And if they're going to stake out this ground where they're joyless, they're not having any fun, they're the scolds of the world, I think that just opens up to us having having a run of the place. So the opportunities continue, and I think that we just need to be patient. If there's anything in the news that you're not liking these days, just maintain your patience, keep the faith. So here's Ted Lieu, Democrat from California. As a Catholic, I take great offense to Donald Trump mocking Catholics. I wish Trump would focus on lowering prices instead. The American economy and negative GDP growth last quarter, that's what he should be focused on instead of making fun of Catholics. It's just such a stupid argument, straw man argument. It's a non sequitur. Trump is, of course, going to be focused on prices. He wants prices to come down too. It's not in his best interest to have prices high and to have GDP contracting, but he's shaking stuff up in terms of our policies. And he explains himself. He did an interview. I'll play some of that. But he doesn't have time to tweet a funny joke about him being the Pope. Well, we're about to choose the Pope. He doesn't have time for that. They just he traps them all the time. All right. He talked about prices. He did an interview with Kristen Welker. I forget where she is. She ABC. Well, we'll figure it out momentarily. One of the most loathsome figures in journalism. But Trump is taken to using these reporters as heels, where he thinks that he can just sort of pro wrestling beat them down, and I think he's enjoying it. So let's hear what he's got to say about prices, because this did come up.
Well, prices are already going up on some popular items, tires, strollers.
This is such a dishonest interview already. Prices are down on groceries. Prices are down for oil. Prices are down for all energy. Prices are down at tremendous numbers for gasoline. And let me tell you, when you have the big thing, what he did, he spent like a stupid person, which he was, but he spent like a very stupid person. And that was bad for inflation. But what really killed us with inflation was the price of energy. It went up to $3.90, even $4.
So you see why he does this stuff. So she's on NBC. Good. I'm glad I can't.
And in California, $5 and $6.
Sorry, hit the play button again. But here's what's interesting about this is that he's right about the energy point. This is the main point, is what drives prices up is high energy costs. That is a lot of what goes into the price of goods. Is they're expensive to produce, they're expensive to ship, they're expensive to maintain the factories, and all this is energy dependent. And the cost of energy is what really drives the prices up of almost every business. And the fact that Biden shut down pipelines, the fact that he would not allow for new oil drilling permits, the fact that he would not drill offshore, and that he would only seemingly invest in the mythical magic of wind and solar, which have just not proven nearly efficient enough to run a country the size of America. And it's not going to work going forward because AI, we're heading into the AI revolution. It is an arms race for AI. I will talk about this a little bit later in the week, so I'll just give you a teaser now. But it is very, very energy consuming. The tech sector for a major U.S. industry has actually been kind of fuel efficient because it's just computers. But the AI it needs so much energy to maintain it. It's not the same as having some massive manufacturing or massive retail. It has been efficient until this point, considering how much GDP it produces relative to the energy expenditure that it takes. That is changing in a big way. So once we get in this AI arms race, we need a lot more energy. And thus, we need to be getting all the energy out of the ground right away. And we've conditioned ourselves to think that we could live without all the fossil fuels, all the oil, natural gas, fracking, all that stuff. No, we need all of it. Trump gets it. And the fact that Biden didn't shows you how regressive and stupid he was.
Dollars, right? Okay. I have it down to $1.98 in many states right now. When you go that much lower on energy, which is ahead of my prediction because I really thought I could get it down into the 250s. We have it down at $1.98 in numerous places. But when you say costs are going up, even mortgage rates are going down.
Well, but let me give you some examples. These are actual examples. So you're saying the prices that are going down, some prices are going up. Tires, strollers, some clothing in the wake of your tariffs.
That's peanuts compared to energy. Energy is 60% of the cost.
But sir, you campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day
Well, I don't know. When
one.
you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing? I'm saying that gasoline is going down. Gasoline is thousands of times more important than a stroller someplace.
But what do you say to Americans who say they voted for you because they want and they need relief right now?
And they're getting it.
Right now? What?
I don't know. I filled up my gas tank this weekend, and I'm in LA, so these are high prices, and it was the lowest that it's been in months and months. I don't remember the last time it was this low. It's still very expensive. It was not all the way back down to where I think it was at its lowest point right at the end of Trump's administration, I think, or at least before the COVID started to create problems. But it's the overall prices are coming down. Egg prices are coming down. It's the I feel like I'm seeing some. I had a grocery run the other day, and it's always expensive for me because I got the 6 kids, but and I like to cook. But if you guys may have heard, but I have to say that it did feel like it was a little lower on some products. It feels like there are a lot of sales going on that I wasn't anticipating. So I don't know. It feels like you email me aloha@alexmarlow.com. I do feel like there is a downtick in prices. It's just noteworthy. I have twice over the last few days got a receipt for a routine purchase, and it was a little lower than I thought it would be. I mean, it's not going to change my life dramatically, and we all want that, but it's how much is he supposed to have done in the first 100 days to lower prices? He's lowered a lot of prices. Inflation is basically at zero. You've got egg prices that are down. You've got gas prices coming down. These seem like pretty good accomplishments.
What about those
even mortgage rates?
different items I just
mortgage
mentioned.
rates are going down, despite the fact that we have a stubborn Fed.
But you said dolls could cost a couple bucks more.
Maybe they might, but you don't need to have, as I said, $35. You can have 2, 3, 4, and save a lot of money. We don't need to feed the beast.
This is a funny one, especially for you parents in the audience. What do you think of this argument? Because I feel like if I was not a parent, I wouldn't have liked the argument that you don't need $35. You could do it with $2. But I must say, as a parent, the argument doesn't offend me quite as much. I feel like in a vacuum, I don't like telling Americans you should have less. I like telling Americans you should have exactly what you want. If you want to have 4 cars and there's only 2 people in the family, if that's what you want and you're an American, go out and get it. If you want to have a 14 putters, and if you want to have a vast tequila collection, and if you're an American, if you want that, you can go get it. And I'm generally like that. That said, as a parent who feels like I'm constantly filling up garbage bags filled with barely used toys and taking them down to the Goodwill, literally 3-4 times a year, 10 bags at a time of clothes and toys that are just not really worn at all, and just taking them down to charity. It feels like we could probably do with a few less dolls from China. Like it feels okay. It doesn't feel that bad to me. But I want your take, because in general, it's like on a personal level, I'm cool with it. But on a general level, I tend to not like this type of argument. But really interesting. Trump had a bunch of other interesting moments in this clip. Let me play a couple others. This one I admit is a bit of a disappointment, but I still feel compelled to share it.
The Trump organization is selling hats that say Trump 2028.
Yeah.
Are you seriously considering a third term?
Look at her face. Look at her face. Look at how serious she is. She's the most serious journalist in the world. Are you considering a third term? And I've never looked this serious about anything in my life. And she's asking about a Trump 2028 hat, which I have to say, and I don't have a great track record on this. And this is where we need the show to take off, people, because I've got good ideas and I need to get more capital, be able to pull them off for all of you. But I've thought about making the Trump 2028 hats. I thought about this many years ago during his first term. I thought we're making Trump 2028 hats. It's going to be hilarious. Then we'll do Trump 2032. And I was too lazy to do it, and I should have got it done. And I feel like if I just had a little extra money in the bank, you know what? So all of you guys, let's make this show huge. And then we're going to do fun, creative stuff like this, like more merch. But his answer is what you will expect. So I'll play that, but just notice what serious journalisming is going on here.
Mr. President, even though it's prohibited by the Constitution, or is this about staying politically viable?
I will say this. So many people want me to do it. I have never had requests so strong as that. But it's something that, to the best of my knowledge, you're not allowed to do. I don't know if that's constitutional that they're not allowing you to do it or anything else, but there are many people selling the 2028 hat. But this is not something I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have 4 great years and turn it over to somebody, ideally a great Republican to carry it forward. But I think we're going to have 4 years, and I think 4 years is plenty of time to do something really spectacular.
It was a fantastic answer, and it's exactly the right answer. Unfortunately, in some ways, because I like the idea of questioning these norms, and I feel like he is still head and shoulders above any sort of successor, and I think that does make me nervous. I'm just being perfectly frank with you. As much as I like our bench much more than Democrats' bench, I mean, it is a steep fall off from Trump to whoever's going to be next, and the fact of the matter is 22nd Amendment is pretty black and white here. So you got to change that if you want him to run again. I don't really see any way around it. And I would love to see it happen, to be honest, just to give it the option. I think it'd be super compelling. I would love to see it as a news person. As a constitutional scholar, I'd be happy, which I'm not, I'd be happy to hear arguments on why it's such a impossibility to do a third term. But just the idea of a Trump-Obama 2028 race, which is what we'd see, would be absolutely excellent. So that's right. So, okay. So he's starting to get asked by the Democrats bench. And check this out.
You know what I can't name? I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do. And I really believe in a two-party system. Because.
Yeah, that's right. So it's I don't know what they're going to do is right. Crockett got called out by Kamala Harris, who is still the standard bearer for the Democrat Party. She was the nominee last time. She's the front runner to be the nominee next time. Do I think she's going to make it all the way? Probably not. I don't think that's the smart money. I think I would bet on the field versus Harris for 2028. But that said, she is, as of now, the most likely person to be the Democrat nominee. And she was calling out Jasmine Crockett from the stage last week. I played it on the show. It's wild. So Crockett is a joke to you and me. She is a font of humor and entertainment. But the Democrats think that she is the future. So pretty cool stuff, and very exciting to see the president. The president's in good form right now. And I like that he's not backing off of his core promises. And I think he does have a lot of people on their heels. The Xi Jinping is meeting with Vladimir Putin right now. And you know why they're meeting? Because they're getting squeezed by Trump. Putin's war is not coming to an end. He needs it to come to an end. Trump would like to see it, but it's not happening. And she's getting squeezed by tariffs. So I'm nervous about this because I would like to see Putin pulled away from the Sinosphere. I think that's really important to try to pull as many countries away from China and doing business with China. But you knew they were going to do it. They're going to meet and they're going to try to huddle, try to figure out a way to get around Trump. But Trump is putting pressure on all around the world. And I just think it's really, really noteworthy to note that he's got all the bad guys on their back foot. And that is very big. Trump continues to make a lot of headway when it comes to his immigration policy. The Trump administration is going to pay for migrant flights for illegals who self-deport. I love this idea. This would be much, much cheaper than it's just simply going to be cheaper than to have to fund it ourselves. We know the government is deeply inefficient, but I'm saying that if it's a $150 flight and you give someone $250, they might take it if they know they're going to get deported anyway. And that would be a lot cheaper than whatever it would cost to get in a government plane. So Fox News had a good breakdown of this. Bill Malugin breaks it down. He's one of the best guys at Fox. So let's hear what he's got to say about it.
To you. So Fox News can report exclusively that DHS will announce today that they're going to start paying for the commercial flights of illegal aliens who self-deport from the U.S. And on top of that, they're going to pay them an additional $1,000 stipend once they're confirmed to have left the country. Now, DHS says doing this is going to be significantly cheaper for the American taxpayer. They tell us that right now it costs on average about $17,000 to arrest, detain, and deport someone. They say paying for self-deportation and the stipend will only cost about $4,500 per.
All I can say is these numbers, it does seem to make sense. That just seems like it's just from what I know about government inefficiency. It's hard to quantify these numbers, and obviously at a Fox News cable news hit, they're not going to walk you through how they got to them, but it does seem to make sense.
Per person. That's about 70% cheaper. Aliens are going to have to register to self-deport on the new CBP Home app to access that DHS financial assistance, as well as announce their intent to leave the country. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem tells Fox in part, quote, "If you are here illegally, self-deportation is the best, safest, and most cost-effective way to leave the United States to avoid arrest." In the meantime, here in the sanctuary city of Los Angeles, ICE confirms to Fox News that 3 suspects arrested in connection with the home invasion murder of a man in the Woodland Hills neighborhood last Sunday are all in the U.S. illegally.
Yeah, there you go. So we have more illegal alien crime. It goes on. This logic works. We dug into this at Breitbart. We've seen this policy in Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. It's worked every time. So paying for people to self-deport is great and highly efficient and creative. And I like when they're doing the creative approach. We've got 82 illegal aliens prosecuted for entering the newly created military zone along the New Mexico border that they've got going. Randy Clark's got a good story on this for us at Breitbart News, and how there has been a new area that has been erected by Secretary Hegseth and Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks. Breitbart Texas has been reporting on this, and there people going in there, and they're immediately getting dealt with by law enforcement and prosecuted. Perfect. Exactly what we want to see. And Neil Monroe had an interesting story from us about how there are 9,000 migrants who are stuck completely penniless in southern Mexico. They have nowhere to go because they started the trek towards the United States as part of a caravan. And once they figured out that they weren't going to be let in, then they stopped. And now it's causing a problem for Mexico and southern Mexico. And I just find that to be very noteworthy, that it was a real industry. It was a real culture that to try to get to somewhere south of our border and try to do what you can to get up, knowing that once you got to the United States, you would be able to figure it out. And that is it's ending. It's coming to an end, and the world will be better off for it, not just the United States. Another fun showdown that's looming for the Squad. Tom Homan is exploring a case against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the future president, for obstructing immigration enforcement. So she basically dared Tom Homan to arrest her because she's extremely vocal about saying that she wants to protect illegal aliens who are here illegally. The question becomes, is she just using speech, or is she actually taking steps to physically aid and abet illegal aliens remaining in the country? And I think that will be the key here, is that she certainly talks as though they deserve to stay and should not be deported, but she's probably free to say that. The question is, does she take any steps to physically facilitate the way that judge did in Judge Dugan, allegedly? And does she taking physical steps to help them avoid law enforcement? And the question is, she's certainly providing information that will help people avoid law enforcement. If you're an illegal alien, does that constitute does that count as free speech, or is that the sort of thing that really qualify as trying to obstruct justice in this country? So that's what we're looking at, and I am curious to see what would happen. I mean, maybe she'll get arrested, maybe she'll end up at the rebuilt, newly opened Alcatraz prison off of San Francisco. Alcatraz is allegedly, according to Trump, where it used to have the most ruthless and violent criminals. Did they have the great Alphonse Capone there? I think the great Alphonse Capone, who Trump always refers to as the great Alphonse Capone. One of my favorite Trumpisms. I think he was there. So the Alcatraz was shut down, I think it was in the 60s. I used to know my Alcatraz history pretty well, being a Berkeley graduate. And so I did the Alcatraz tour a number of times. It's pretty frigid. You go there on a boat, and the boat you tend to sit on the roof. At least I always did, and it's really cold. And it doesn't seem like a great prison to go to. So I think it's fun. This is my main takeaway from Trump doing this, is that it's fun. It was shut, I think it was, and you guys can correct me, those of you who are historians, if I'm wrong on this. I think it was Robert Kennedy Sr. who shut it. So saying basically it was too expensive and it's hard to operate, and having a prison located on an island is not convenient for anyone who wants to work there. So but symbolically, I think it's very cool to have these maximum security prisons where it's very hard to escape. And it also gives rise to great action movies like The Rock. The Rock is a fantastic action movie. If you guys want just sort of a popcorn flick, who did The Rock? Is that Michael Bay? If it is, that might be the only Michael Bay movie that I think I can with Sean Connery, not The Rock as in the wrestler. It's it is Michael Bay. That's a good one. That's a really good one. So if you guys have not seen that one, Nick Cage, classic Nick Cage, really good. He's very Nick Cagey in it. You'll enjoy it. So if you the high recommendation for the Rock about Alcatraz. I hope Trump opens it back up. Why not? It's fun. I'm pro fun. Are we pro fun here in the Marlow Show? We are. Absolutely. So he's directed the DOJ and the DHS and the FBI to reopen and rebuild Alcatraz. So we'll see how expensive it is, but it's all a drop in the bucket, right? To have a cool prison where we could send the bad guys. Allegedly, Stephen Miller's at the top of the list for National Security Advisor after Walt has gone down. So we'll see that. I like Miller where he's at. Miller's in every room. He's so knowledgeable on the law these days, and he's very creative with the way he uses the law. He also is he's the number one guy in immigration. So maybe they see immigration, national security as the same. So I don't know. It feels like there's got to be someone else who could do it. I mean, maybe it's Gorka. Maybe Gorka's the guy. Who knows? It could happen. He's got the bona fides now. He's been National Security Council twice. I will mention some overseas news. Some of this, I think, for this audience, I want to encourage you to go to Breitbart News if this piques your interest. My Breitbart Fight Club, Breitbart Confidential show, my interview today is with Oliver Lane, our London bureau chief. And we talk about Nigel Farage, historic sweeping victories in local elections in the UK. This is just great news because Farage has been a fixture in politics in the UK since, I mean, it's really been like my whole life. And his biggest victory, of course, was Brexit, which we were deeply a part of at Breitbart News. We were the number one Brexit news source. And so this was dubbed as a reform quake because his Reform Party, which is his third party, he had the UKIP, he had the Brexit Party, now he's got the Reform Party. And they picked up 677 council seats out of 1,600, so 41% of the seats. And they've won some mayorships. It's just a dominant performance, making them arguably now en route to become the second biggest party in the UK, which is crazy to think about it because it's mostly a two-party system. They also have Liberal Democrats there, so it's kind of three major parties, but they have the Tories and they have the Labour Party, also the Lib Dems. And then now Reform is just coming out of nowhere to challenge them all, and it's all thanks to Farage. And what he's promised to do is he's going to use this newfound power to block migrant hotels, block the green agenda. He's going to try to make sure that he is focusing on local issues, warning against woke employees and DEI type stuff. And he wants a Doge initiative where he's going to audit local councils. So bringing micro Doge to parts of Europe. This could be, or parts of the UK. This could be a huge model going forward, and you love to see it. Not as good news coming out of Germany. So we know that the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, so Alternative for Germany, second biggest party in Germany, has now been labeled as right-wing extremists. So the second biggest party in Germany has been labeled as right-wing extremists. It's quite interesting to note that J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio had gone over to Berlin and they had warned that their infringements on free speech were growing, that they do not take free speech seriously there. And this is a threat to the entire West in general as they move away from those traditional values of freedom that made the West thrive and move towards more of a tyrannical viewpoint which has, I think, not worked out well for Germany in particular, but they are now labeling AfD as an extremist group. And so there's a new governing coalition that's coming in. And so it really puts pressure on them to undo it. And I hope they do, but it is a absolute threat to democracy when you start labeling very popular political movements as extreme and thus in line for sanctions simply because you disagree with their worldview. And that's exactly what's happening. So elsewhere, more good news in Europe. George Simeon has won the first round of the Romanian presidential election. We did a big exclusive with him. He is every bit a MAGA guy who looks up to President Trump. He's modeled himself after President Trump, and he got a plurality of the vote. That said, they do a 2-ballot system, and it is quite possible that he will get overwhelmed on the second ballot by a coalition of various globalist parties. But it was a big win in the first round. So there is a second round, to the point where the globalist regime that's currently in power has basically announced that they're going to all resign. So we're going to have a devolution of the entire Romanian government after this first round of the presidential election that took place yesterday. So exciting. And again, we'll keep you posted at Breitbart News on that. All right. Other than that, what else do we got? Anything else I want to bring up? Trump wants to tariff movies. This is one where the audience, you guys can help me on this. He wants to post a 100% tariff on movies produced in foreign countries. We want movies to be made in America again. I don't have a perfect read into this one. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So if you guys have a thought, then please share with me what you think Trump is doing here, because I don't totally understand what the goal is. He says the movie industry is dying a very fast death. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States, Hollywood, and many other areas within the U.S. They're devastated. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. I don't know if movies being made elsewhere is a national security threat. So he's working with the Department of Commerce. So that leads me to believe this is a Lutnick idea. I don't always love the Lutnick ideas. I think Lutnick, from what I've been able to assess, is that he's got very good leadership qualities, but not necessarily the sharpest guy in the cabinet in terms of ideas. So I'm not a hater of as far as what I've been able to see, but I don't know if this is coming from him. I don't quite get it. So he wants 100% tariff on movies coming into our country. He's encouraging people to make movies in America, but I don't really know why he's doing this. So if you guys have a theory, let me know. Of course, I guess it's good to make movies in America, but there's a lot of this I don't totally get. I'm generally pro-terror, pro-putting pressure on Hollywood, shaking things up. I'm just trying to understand, and maybe you guys can help me with that. I've asked a couple of smart people, and I did not get great answers. Let's see. Also in Hollywood, the Diddy trial starts today. So Diddy did not take a plea deal. So they're in the jury selection process. Let me know if you guys want updates from the Diddy trial from me. It feels like a place where you can go to Breitbart.com. We'll have the basics for you. I don't have any strong opinions. I guess it's whether or not he's running a criminal enterprise. That's the main thing that's out there with him. And I will plug John Nolte's got a great piece on the box office from the weekend, where Marvel's Thunderbolts is a big disappointment despite pretty much rave reviews. And I've got a quick hot take on this, which is that we do not have Florence Pugh fever. Florence Pugh is a star of this movie, and is one of these people who is all right, and Hollywood keeps imposing her on us and acting as though we care very deeply about this individual who's, she's not classically beautiful. She's talented, but I mean, there's lots of talented people, and they just want to put her in everything and then announce that she's the greatest. And tends to be a ceiling on how long that can go. And so they put her in a Marvel movie, and it is at a very weak $76 million 3-day opening. So it's not great. And the 28th best opening for Marvel. And this is despite apparently not being woke and getting good reviews. And it's still not doing well. So that's my take. We don't know Florence Pugh fever, and take that in the spirit in which it's intended. All right. So we're starting to do a roundup of Hollywood's reactions to the Trump's tariffs proposal. And the Hollywood's in panic mode. So they don't like it. So we're rounding up some of the reactions, but it's all negative. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe he's just trolling the Hollywood elite. So that would work for me. That's what he's doing. That's good enough. That would be reason enough. All right, one other thing to play. Jay Bhattacharya, director of the National Institutes of Health, he was announced something that is such a no-brainer, another low-hanging fruit that Trump was just handed on a platter. He's going to free the Beagles. Here we go.
Is it hard right now to change the culture there?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, it's been interesting to watch. Like I'll do some policy change, and you know, people like try to find the worst possible spin for it. I'll give you a couple of examples. So, for instance, I put out a policy to make sure that we have when we use we have animals in research that we look at alternatives. You know, it's very easy, for instance, to cure Alzheimer's in mice, but those things don't translate to humans. So we've put forward a policy to replace animals in research with other technological advances, AI and other tools that actually translate better to what human health. But then I'm getting and we got rid of all the Beagle experiments on the NIH campus. But you know, it's sort of like people just don't trust the NIH anymore, and I can understand why. The NIH during the pandemic leaned into lockdowns, school closures, all these things, and so I think there's still a level of distrust that the American people have for the NIH that I'm hoping under President Trump we can reverse.
He's very likable. I enjoyed that commentary, and I'm glad the Beagles are free. My favorite dog I ever had, Jobin, was Beagle. Perfect boy, and just so lovable, so smart, and just the fact that we are just do experiments on these animals for who knows what purpose. Like, I have not seen any. What's the major evidence? Please share it with me if you know, like, why we need to be doing Beagle experimentations at this point. And Dr. Fauci loved it. He loved experimenting on the Beagles. It's I got to do I got to go do a little more deep dive in Dr. Fauci and his Beagles, because we had so much reporting on this at Breitbart at the time, and it's just such offensive stuff. But they're basically Beagle torture, and we had funded it. So just cruel stuff, and it just no. And it was a big thing where there was a journal that reported that the NIH was funding research of insects eating beagles alive, and then they had the story retracted. And I claim that there's erroneous information, but I just wonder if it was a big pressure campaign. So, because Bhattacharya said he came in and blocked the Beagle experiments. So if there were no Beagle experiments, why would he need to block Beagle experiments? I know this because at one of the hospitals where Mrs. Dr. Marlow had to do some work at when we lived in D.C., that they had Beagles in the basement. And what were the Beagles there for? They weren't there just to comfort people. They were there because they're being experimented on. So, all right, we can do better than that as a people. All right, I got an Ilhan Omar. I forget why I told Missy to pull this one, but I'm sure it's good because I sent it to her. Let's see what we got.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's...
That's Mehdi Hassan, and it's on Al Jazeera. So just to let you know, Mehdi Hassan is one of the most left-wing guys. He's also deeply dishonest. He's a sort of an expert debater, so he's a big spin guy. And so just note that when you're hearing him talk.
Whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York, what do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. And so if fear was the driving force of policies to keep Americans safe inside of this country, we should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Yeah, so this is one of these left-wing talking points that I don't know where it comes from, but she's an immigrant to this country and married a white guy. It's this thing where you're allowed to demonize white men only, even though it's demonstrable that how much crime and terrorism occurs from other races, that where white people just get singled out, white men in particular. It's just one of these things the left is really taken to, and it's a sign of hatred of this country. That it's the white men have done a lot of good in America, and just to be able to single them out, and just even if you are an immigrant to this country, married a white guy, and just say we don't like white men, like that is, It speaks to, I think, a very regressive values. These people claim that they're progressive. That's very regressive, just to break things down along those lines around ethnicity, gender, sex, whatever you want to call it. So, all right, it kind of speaks for itself, right? Let's see. I got some email. aloha@alexmarlow.com. You guys sent me some nice ones recently. Let's see. What do we got here? Peggy Meyer. Elise Stefanik's running for governor of New York State. I'm beyond ecstatic. She asked me to talk her up. Us New Yorkers need to defeat the moron that is running our state now, a.k.a. Kathy Hochul. Alex, I remember when she replaced Governor Cuomo, you didn't even know how to pronounce her name. Yeah, that's true. I didn't know how to pronounce Hochul's name. Well, how did I pronounce it, though? You guys got to remind me. Yeah, she's done a terrible job. Lisa Zeldin got within 5 points of Hochul, so it's possible to see a Republican there. Stefanik is good TV, so I like that. So as a news guy, I always put my news guy hat on first. Do I think a Republican's going to win New York State? I don't know, but I'll tell you that we will at Breitbart cover it robustly if she runs. She is not announced yet, but there's a lot of chatter about it earlier today. Christy emails me, Dear Alex, the hamster death that persuaded you to compose a forlorn song was funny, but I loved your Flossie the goldfish story. Yeah, I talked about the rat versus snake debate, which goes on. I continue to get emails on rat versus snake. What is the correct pet to have if you have to choose two of those frowned upon species? Rat is by far winning, but I've got a couple of snake votes as well in there. But I did tell the story of how I had a hamster that died. His name was Teddy, and I did write a song about it. I did win an award for it. That is true. I broke that down on one of the shows last week. I think it was Thursday's show. But Flossie the goldfish, that was more popular. I did get some email on that. I got quite a bit of email on Flossie the goldfish. I had a goldfish saga a couple of years ago where I took it upon myself to take care of a goldfish that my children had won, and I had earned a tank from Santa Claus, and then I immediately murdered Flossie with the tank, like put Flossie in, and Flossie was instantly dead. It was quite the story. I walked us through, so I don't need to go any deeper in there. All right, Christy continues. My daughter dearly loved her pet rat, Sheila, a perfect name for a rat. That's a great rat name. Was outside playing with my daughter. Sheila escaped and ran under my husband's unfinished 57 Chevy Project. As my daughter came around to capture Sheila, she stomped on the rat. Luckily, my fireman, when the men were men, husband, knew CPR. I had just finished working a 12-hour night shift at the hospital and was snuggled up for a long nap. But my husband and daughter came screaming into the house with the rat, having a seizure and receiving mouth-to-mouth. I called the code and informed them that the rat was dead. They both left my bedroom sobbing. I thought it was so sweet that her dad would give mouth-to-mouth to a rat rather than break her heart. It's so good. Wonderful story. I like those stories. Well written. You guys write great emails. I'm very blessed to read your great emails. I'm always, as a writer myself, it's always quite a pleasure when I read something that is so nicely pieced together. All right, that'll be today's show. Thanks, Christy, for the email. That's a great one. And thanks to our producer, Misty, and all of you in the Marlow audience. Don't forget to check out the Breitbart Fight Club, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.